I was standing in the middle of a half-finished kitchen when the call came through. The drywall guys were arguing about measurements, my shirt was stuck to my back with sweat, and my phone wouldn't stop buzzing in my pocket. At first, I let it go. Figured it could wait. But when I finally checked and saw it was Connor, a buddy I hadn't heard from months, I stepped outside into the glare. He didn't waste time. Said he saw Rachel downtown 2 nights ago at a rooftop bar, laughing with someone who looked a lot like Ethan. So they were close. Real close. I remember thinking, nah, Ethan's my brother. Rachel's my fiancée. We're getting married in 2 weeks. Sure, Ethan's a flirt and Rachel likes the attention, but that's all it ever was, noise. Right? Except Connor's voice cracked a little. It didn't look like harmless fun, man. I thought you should know. That was the moment the air felt wrong. Like the heat wasn't just from the sun anymore. I stood there with the phone to my ear, staring at the rows of new builds around me, all clean siding and promise, and I realized I didn't know what kind of house I was walking back into. I confronted her that night. She didn't even deny it. Just started crying and saying she didn't know why it happened, that it was a mistake, that she loved me, that she was so ashamed. And the worst part? For a second, a real stupid second, I believed her. That maybe we could, I don't know, patch it. Then I told my parents. Thought they'd be furious. Thought they'd at least demand some kind of justice. But my mom just sat there, patting my hand like I'd scraped my knee. Honey, don't let one mistake ruin something this beautiful. My father added, Ethan was drunk. She was confused. Everyone makes mistakes under pressure. That's when I knew. This wasn't just betrayal. It was a cover-up. I wasn't their son. I was a piece of a story they were trying to keep tidy. And that's when I decided I was done being their story. I didn't scream, didn't punch a wall, or break anything. I didn't go to Ethan's place or call him out. I just left. People always expect fireworks when someone's betrayed like that. But the truth is, some betrayals are so deep they don't light you up, they hollow you out. I sat in my truck that night with the windows fogging, listening to the rain drum the windshield, and I felt empty. Not sad, not angry, just used up. Rachel tried calling the next day. I didn't answer. My mother left a voicemail. This isn't who you are, Jackson. You don't run from things. Funny. I thought walking away from a lie was the first honest thing I'd done in years. I packed a bag with 3 changes of clothes, my old tool belt, and the cash I had left from my last project. Didn't tell anyone. I just drove east. No music, no map. Somewhere around Asheville, I pulled off the highway and kept heading into the trees. I ended up in a little town called Brevard. Nothing fancy. Couple hardware stores, a diner, a post office with an American flag that looked like it had been there since '72. But the air smelled clean. I rented a room above a garage from an old man named Virgil who didn't ask questions, just handed me a key and said, "Don't smoke inside." That night, I sat on the porch outside that room, listening to the cicadas and watching the last of the storm roll through the mountains. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. I still didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew what I wasn't going to do. Go back. Because back there, I was just a prop in their perfect little lie. And here, even if I had nothing, at least I was real. I stayed in Brevard longer than I expected. Days turned into weeks. Virgil gave me part-time work fixing up cabins for out-of-towners who wanted that rustic mountain feel, without the rotting decks and leaky roofs. He paid in cash, didn't care much about paperwork. That suited me fine. I didn't want my name on anything. That was the thing, my name. Jackson Reed. It used to mean something. A solid name, a family name. But now it felt like a stain. Every time I heard it, I saw Rachel's face twist in guilt. Ethan smirking like he always did when he got away with something. My parents sitting there pretending nothing happened. So I stopped using it. I told Virgil to call me Jax. Not creative, but simple. He nodded and never asked more. I liked that about him. He treated me like a man, not a project. He didn't need a story. Eventually, I found routine. Early mornings with a thermos of black coffee, hammering nails before the heat settled in, evenings spent walking the wooded trail behind the garage. I started to look forward to silence. I didn't miss the noise, the family dinners full of tension wrapped in politeness, the birthdays where Ethan got the spotlight and I got the bill. About a month in, I wandered into the public library. Not for books, just for the air conditioning. That's where I met Angela. She was running a local writing workshop. I sat in the back and pretended I belonged there. I didn't say much, just listened. She smiled at me on the way out, like she saw through the quiet, but didn't mind. We started talking after that. Small things at first, then real things. She never pushed. I never explained. We just existed next to each other for a while. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough. It was a Saturday in late September when I saw her again. Not Rachel. Worse, in a way, Morgan. My cousin Morgan used to be the one person in the family I actually trusted. We were close as kids, grew apart in college, but even after the betrayal, she sent a few quiet texts saying she was on my side. I didn't reply. Not because I hated her. I just didn't know who was safe anymore. So when I saw her standing in line at the bakery in Brevard's tiny downtown, I froze. She smiled like nothing had happened, like we were just two relatives bumping into each other on vacation. I wanted to turn around and walk out. But something in me, that same part that used to keep peace at family dinners, nodded hello. We sat outside, coffee between us, the air crisp with fall. She told me she missed me, that the family was worried, that Ethan had really matured since the incident, that Rachel still asked about me. I didn't say much, just sipped my coffee and listened to the wind push red leaves across the sidewalk. Then she got to the real reason she came. We were hoping maybe you'd consider coming home for the holidays, she said. Just to talk. It doesn't have to mean anything permanent. That was the trick. Make it sound casual, temporary, reasonable. But I knew the script. It always ended the same way. Me apologizing for making people uncomfortable, for reacting instead of absorbing. I told her I appreciated her reaching out. Then I stood up and left. No big scene. No angge. Just walked away and didn't look back. That's when I knew I was really healing, when I could see a trap wearing a familiar face and keep walking. It didn't stop with Morgan. A few weeks later, Angela showed me a message she got on Instagram. It was from a woman with a soft filtered profile picture and a username that sounded vaguely familiar. The message read, "I hope you know what kind of man you're with. He abandoned his family, his fiancée, his responsibilities." Angela didn't say anything right away. She just handed me the phone and let me read it. Then she sat next to me on the porch, her shoulder brushing mine, and said, "I blocked her, but you should know they're trying." I didn't ask who they was. I knew. After that, the phone call started. Unknown numbers. Voicemails full of sighs and half-finished sentences. My father saying, "You don't stop being a son just because you don't like what happened." My mother crying, whispering, "We're still your blood." Ethan never called, of course. Cowardice runs loud in silence. I changed my number. Again, Angela asked me once, gently, if I ever missed them. I thought about it, and I realized I missed the idea of them. The version I used to believe in. The safe story where family meant unconditional love and not selective memory. But the real them? The ones who watched me break and asked me to smile through it. No, I didn't miss that. They didn't want me back because they loved me. They wanted me back because my absence was inconvenient. Because it cracked the image. Because silence, it turns out, is louder than shouting. The final straw came in a manila envelope. It was addressed to Jackson Reed, a name I hadn't spoken aloud in months. Inside was an invitation. Not handwritten, printed, formal, like it was a business merger, not a family reconciliation. It was for Ethan and Rachel's wedding. That's when something in me snapped. Not in a loud, violent way. Not like the movies. It was quiet, a door closing softly behind me. A kind of stillness you don't come back from. I didn't scream, didn't burn the envelope. I just sat on the table and stared at it, wondering if they ever thought, even for a second, how cruel that was. Or if they really believed I'd show up, shake hands, smile in photos, pretend nothing had been stolen. That night, I wrote a letter. Not to Ethan, not to Rachel, not even to my parents. I wrote it to everyone and no one. It said, "You chose the story. I chose the truth. You wanted comfort. I wanted peace. I'm not angry anymore, but I'm done. There will be no return. No compromise. No role to play in your fiction. Let me go or don't. I'm already gone." I didn't sign it Jackson. I didn't sign it at all. I made 5 copies and mailed them. One to my parents, one to Ethan, one to Rachel, one to Morgan, and one I kept for myself. Not out of spite, out of ceremony. Some things deserve a clean ending. Changing your name isn't dramatic. It's paperwork. Forms, fees, signatures. But don't let that fool you. It's also a kind of rebirth. It happened 6 weeks after I sent the letter. I stood in line at the county courthouse in Transylvania County. Yeah, that's really what it's called, holding a manila folder with my new name typed neatly across the top. Jackson Hale. The clerk didn't blink, just asked me a few questions, handed me a form, and pointed me toward courtroom B. The judge was an older woman, hair in a bun, expression like she'd seen it all and stopped reacting years ago. She asked me to state my reason for the name change. I thought about lying, saying it was for business, privacy, but something in me was tired of lying, even the protective kind. So I said, "Because the old name doesn't belong to me anymore." She nodded, stamped the form, and that was it. 15 minutes, and I was free. I walked out of the courthouse into crisp mountain air that smelled like dry leaves and chimney smoke. And I swear for a second, I felt taller. Not better, not healed, but taller. Like I'd stopped hunching under someone else's story. That night I sat on the porch again. Same porch, same creaky wooden step. Angela brought out a blanket and 2 mugs of tea. She didn't ask about the court. She didn't have to. She just looked at me, really looked, and said, "You look different, lighter." And I said, "I think I finally believe I'm not going back." We sat in silence after that, the kind that doesn't need to be filled, the kind that says, "We're here." We made it, not because it was easy, but because it was ours. Angela was 7 months pregnant when it happened. We were setting up folding chairs in the backyard, blue gingham tablecloths, lemon cupcakes, a cheap banner from the dollar store that read, "Hello, little one." It wasn't fancy, but it felt right. Homemade. Real. We didn't invite many people. Just a few neighbors, her sister from Asheville, a couple of women from the library writing group. Small circle. Safe. And then Morgan showed up. She walked through the gate like she belonged there, holding a pale gift bag with silver ribbon and that same disarming smile she'd always worn. The one that said, "I'm family. I am harmless." Angela didn't recognize her. I did. My stomach dropped before my brain caught up. I walked over, heart thudding behind my ribs. She said, "I just wanted to stop by, say congratulations. I won't stay long." Then she reached in her purse and handed me a small envelope. "There's a message inside. From your mom. She's sick, Jackson. She wants to see you." She still used that name. Angela was watching from the porch, her hand resting on her belly. I could tell she knew, maybe not the details, but the energy, the shift in me. I stood there with the envelope in my hand, feeling every nerve in my body buzz. And then I heard my own voice say, "You need to leave." She looked surprised. "Jackson, now, please." It was the first time I'd raised my voice in over a year. It wasn't loud, but it was final. Morgan blinked. Her smile faltered. She turned and walked away, the silver ribbon flapping behind her like a flag in retreat. Angela came to me, slow and steady, and slipped her hand into mine. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded. But more than that, I felt something shift, like I had snapped the last wire connecting me to who I used to be. That night, I burned the envelope in the fire pit. I didn't read it. Whatever was in there wasn't mine to carry anymore. You'd think that was the end of it. After the baby shower, after Morgan and the envelope and the silence I gave back to them, you'd think they'd finally let me go. But people like that, people who build their world on performance, they don't handle rejection well. Not real rejection. Not the kind that isn't about anger, but indifference. A week after I burned the letter, I got a certified envelope from a law office in Louisville. Inside, a notice about my grandmother's will. Apparently, she'd passed away months ago. No one told me. She left me something. Property, maybe. I didn't care what. That wasn't the point. The point was this. They'd used her death to try and pull me back in. I didn't go to the hearing. I sent a formal response through a brevered lawyer. Decline. No contact. Do not involve again. It cost me money I didn't have, but it bought me something better. A line they couldn't cross. Angela asked if I want to talk about my grandmother. I told her the truth. I loved her once when I was a boy, when she used to sneak me extra slices of pie and call me the quiet one with the old soul. But that was long before she started saying things like, Ethan needs more attention. He's not like you. I grieve for that version of her. But the rest, the woman who stood by and watched the rot grow, I let her go, same as the rest. That was the season I stopped mourning. Not just people, but roles. Son, brother, grandson. I laid them down like old coats. Too heavy, too worn, and no longer mine to wear. And for the first time, I didn't feel naked without them. I felt warm, lighter, ready. Angela went into labor just after midnight. I remember the way the moonlight hit the dashboard as I drove, how quiet the road was, not eerie, but still like the whole world was holding its breath with us. We didn't speak much on the drive. She reached over, grabbed my hand, and didn't let go. And I realized this was what family felt like. Not forced smiles or obligation. Just two people holding on through the unknown. The hospital wasn't fancy. Small town. A nurse who looked too young and a doctor who looked too tired. But they were kind, efficient, there when they needed to be, and invisible when they didn't. Angela was calm, fierce, like a storm in slow motion. When the baby came, she didn't cry at first, just blinked, looked around like she was measuring the world before reacting. Then she let out this quiet, breathy sound. Not a wail, but a kind of sigh, like she knew she'd landed somewhere safe. They handed her to Angela first, then to me. And I'll tell you something I've never said out loud. I was terrified to hold her. Not because she was fragile, though she was, but because I was. I wasn't sure I deserved that moment. That clean slate. That new life. But then I looked down, and she looked back. And something in her, in me, settled. Later, when the nurse brought in the birth certificate form, she asked for the baby's full name. Angela looked at me. I looked at her. And I wrote it down, steady hand, no hesitation. Lena Grace Hale. Not Reed. Not a name tied to shame or silence or scripts I didn't write. Hale. A name I chose. A name I bled for. A name that meant breath, survival, beginning. I signed it. And in that second, something old in me let go. These days, I wake up before the sun. The baby monitor hums on the nightstand. The floorboards creak the way old wood does, soft. Buon familiar. I make coffee while the world is still dark. Sip it on the porch while fog curls through the trees like it's trying not to wake the world too fast. Angela sleeps a little longer now. Lena curls into her like she's still part of her, which in some ways she is. And I sit there every morning and breathe. Not because everything is perfect, but because everything is real. People ask me, sometimes, what happened with my family. Not often. Most around here know not to dig where the ground's been scorched. But occasionally, someone will try to trace the lines back. I just say, we don't speak anymore, and leave it at that. Because the truth is, the silence isn't punishment. It's peace. It's what finally filled the space after all the noise burned away. The lies, the manipulation, the guilt disguised as love. I don't check social media. Don't wonder what Ethan's doing. Don't check for updates from Rachel or the cousin who tried to sneak grief into my joy. Not out of bitterness. Out of freedom. I don't carry hate. I carry boundaries. I don't carry shame. I carry a last name that no one gave me. I claimed it. And when Lena takes her first steps, when she falls and I help her up, when she laughs without fear, when she someday asks where we came from, I'll tell her the truth. Not the version that fits someone else's script. The real one. That her father walked through fire and didn't run. That he bled and rebuilt. That he chose love, not out of convenience, but conviction. That he erased a name not to forget, but to become.